Welcome to another video cast with Elation Studios, reaching out to the Elation Nation. Hello, thank you, welcome again. We are privileged here to have a special guest with us, a council member as part of the Cyber Republic, and one of the very key people from the Tuum core development team. Mr. Donald Bullers. Is it Bullers? Bullers? How do you go by?
Bullers. You had it correct the first time.
Bullers. You got to stick with your gut.
That's right.
So thank you for joining us, and of course now to introduce the better half of Elation Studios, we have Fox joining us today as well. So thank you, Fox. Thank you, Donald.
Thanks for
joining.
Absolutely.
We thought it would be really good to bring you on today because in the last council meeting, I guess 2 council meetings ago, one of the topics we discussed was, or a community topic or interest was the World Economic Forum and what was going on there. You gave the council a brief update of some of the happenings there, and it seemed like there were a few sort of more recent developments. So we thought it would be worth just kind of coming on here and talking a little more about that and seeing what you could share or enlighten the community or the Elation Nation with about that. We'd also like to spend a little bit of time today just talking about some kind of key developments with respect to Tuum. Profile, I know it's been out there for a bit, but as that moves out of alpha going into beta, and any other sort of key highlights or developments you could share, we'd definitely be interested in. Mission 89, very much a new initiative that's going on, and that Tuum is, of course, playing a very key role in. So sharing more, enlightening the community about what that's about, how that kind of benefits, not just the Elastos ecosystem, but just more general benefits holistically. And then, anything else, any other key developments that, you thought may be useful to cover off on?
Yeah, so let's jump into World Economic Forum if you're ready for that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, let's start more general and just a quick overview of our participation. So Elastos started participating in the Economic Forum at the end of last year. I stepped in as a representative from Tuum Technologies and Elastos, and what that meant was we joined 2 task forces that were best suited for what we're doing, and they are DCPI, Data for Common Purpose Initiative, and then data intermediaries. So it's all around data, and these are great groups because it brings in members from nonprofits, governments, private enterprises, and then Elastos is one of the very few that bring in blockchain experience. So much of these discussions are dealt around centralized dealings and centralized offerings and thinking in a centralized way, and we bring the decentralized aspect to it. So in any meetings that I participate in, I always bring in a perspective of empowering users and individuals, because that's what we're doing here. We're trying to build up Web3, get away from what we're doing on Web 2, and do it where we can empower users and get them in control of their data. So what does that mean? That means that we participate in meetings, whether it's large group meetings or smaller task forces, and we do this. Early on, we had it very frequently, and then here lately it hasn't been so much, because after you get together and understand what your deliverables are going to be, you break off into smaller groups, and then there's authors, there's reviewers, there's participants, and there's different levels to participate. So where we're at today is we've been participating in those 2 groups. The data intermediaries has a white paper coming out soon, and we participated on a segment for design, UX, how this should be developed, and we have some inputs that'll be on the white paper for that. Other things that have come up is we get connections through the Economic Forum with other teams and groups. So one is the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in India, and they got Elastos mentioned in their recent white paper that was released last week, and that was specific to data marketplaces or service providers where we don't necessarily have a data marketplace yet, but the technology that we provide can influence how data marketplaces are built and developed. And more specifically, in the case of identity, decentralized identifiers are massive. And when you pair in a verifiable credential, that's where we're going. And many don't understand that yet. So before I get too deep into that part, just let me briefly talk about the DCPI section. And that's where we're really getting involved. And we've narrowed down to a small task force. I've pulled up a recent scoping document here. And this is what we're going to get into next. So this is data valuation and pricing mechanisms. So that's the work stream that I'm participating in. I'm going to help author, and we're working on some deliverables that'll be coming out early 2022. So it's not a quick process, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes. And I'll just go through the goal of this really quick. It's to develop a governance mechanism and thought leadership to enable change as it relates to data valuation and pricing mechanisms to the wider exchange framework. So again, this isn't specific to a decentralized aspect, but what we can do with this is we can add our perspective to what they're working on and then use that ourselves. So whenever we're building out application solutions at Tuum and using Elastos that are going to help build out data marketplaces, we'll understand the toolkits and the frameworks and the decisions that are coming into this. We can also be a part of evaluating pilots that are happening. So through this group, we have seen pilots being run in Japan, Colombia, and other areas. And we take that feedback and that understanding, and then we can start to build out some toolkits and some deliverables to help others understand how to begin to build with this. So that's a quick overview. Other things to highlight on this scoping document is that what we're working towards is development, a toolkit development. So we'll be doing that. Evaluation of pilots in the community that are being done. Timeline-wise, we're kicking this off this quarter. A lot of the ongoing developments of the deliverable are going to be done in Q4. And then there's an annual meeting in Davos that's very beginning of 2022. And that's when we want to launch the valuation toolkit. So that's the quick overview of where we're at with World Economic Forum.
I mean, there's certainly a lot that you just went through right there. So thanks for sharing that. I guess if I was going to take a few steps back, so, you have the World Economic Forum. You mentioned there were two sort of key groups that you're a part of. And I think you said, the focus isn't necessarily blockchain and decentralized. It's more of overall overriding is it policy? Are these groups about setting policy? Is it about setting regulations? Is it just about giving guidance? Like, what do these white papers equate to?
Out of those that you offered, guidance is the clearest answer, because the problem that we're actually seeing, and this is something that I'm talking with a group, like I said, through India, where there's potential to be participant in a marketplace pilot ourselves. But the issue is that these guidance documents come out and no one's really using them to the extent
adoption, right?
Correct. And that's a difficult part, because for us, I'm excited about the DCPI part, because going into building data marketplaces using individual data and monetizing that for the users, you need to have a clear understanding of how to value that data and how to get participation. And those are some roadblocks that we're looking at the Economic Forum. But as a whole, yes, a lot of this is guidance and providing this information to governments and enterprises, but actually putting into action is not happening to the extent I think that they would like to see.
So I guess then, as far as getting put into action, whom could you maybe name off some of who the other participants are in these groups, or the organizations that they represent? Because maybe these then are the organizations that would be at least more of an early stage of adoption. These groups are more likely maybe to participate in that. versus other groups that aren't necessarily involved?
So you're talking specifically to our teams or just overall at the
Like,
forum?
so Elastos is a member of, or with Tuum Technologies are members of these two groups.
Yeah.
Who might other sort of organizations be that are involved in sort of the guidance or developing the guidance for
Well,
this?
so now you can look at go on their website and see the active participants of these groups. So it's
Okay.
anywhere from merchant providers like Visa or universities or
Yeah.
government officials or um, there's other groups like this one person group on our team's Obashi, and they're over in Europe and they work on data evaluation streams themselves. So
Yeah.
it spans all aspects of different groups. So it could go on to use from any of these, but I don't know. That's a good question because I don't know how many of the actual participants on the team are actually looking to use this and implement it in their companies.
Is there a target audience for what is produced? So is it governments, NGOs, the free market, or like, when you guys are putting this together, who are you specifically targeting?
It depends. It depends on the deliverable. A lot of this governments will take interest into it, but the specific topic that we're working on, data, it's difficult because a government position primarily would lean towards having complete control of the data. So their interest may come in the aspect of where we start to bring in maybe the valuation of taxing data. So that can span governments or enterprises because one will benefit and one will not. And then that's kind of where a lot of discussion ends at that level. And that's why it's important for Elastos and myself to be involved to say, hey, this isn't always going to be at the decision makers being at the top of government or top of enterprise. It's going to shift where there's going to be technology developed where users are going to have that power, and they don't understand that yet. So that's why I like to be a part of these discussions because one, we're going to use this information ourselves. So I definitely want to do that, but also to kind of shift their thinking a little bit to understand that the way things are operating now on the web is not always how it's going to be.
Yeah. And then I guess as you talk more about data marketplaces, and then this is really where the users are going to be able to have more of that control over the aggregation and sale of their information. Is the backbone of that carrier? Or I remember having a conversation with Rong, and I think it was part of either phase 3 or phase 4, which was around, I think it was a reference to the marketplace. And I think he was talking about carrier. Would you say that the Elastos infrastructure kind of come the end of this year, which is sort of the end of the core build, and as we move more on to, I don't know, enhancements, would you say we're ready now for a marketplace? Would you say we're ready at the end of the year? What do you see as roadblocks in current state for us to get to that marketplace?
That's a good question. There's several pieces to decipher here because it's not necessarily all components of the technology. Where we're ready today is the identity component. So Tuum Technologies is pushing that a lot, the decentralized identifier. That can be used with this new transition to DPoS, a very well way to implement that into traditional application and add an identity to the data. So we're doing that currently, but then you need to implement the verifiable credentials because if you're not validating the data, it's not going to have any value to it. You don't need junk data. So those two pieces from Elastos are available now, and we're working on that in different solutions that we're building at Tuum. But beyond that, the other component's Hive. So Hive's undergoing some developments itself. We have the version 2. There's still some updates that need to be made. More pertaining to transferring your data. So, you can store it in one location, but moving that to another or having a payment mechanism in place. So there's some things that are still being worked on, but those are the 3 components that we're pushing really hard at Tuum Technologies because whenever you start to implement those into a data marketplace, all 3 of those aspects are very valuable to creating that value to have an identity piece, the authenticity piece, and then also the storage, because you're going to need all of that. So carrier, As far as going and talking about Elastos technology, Carrier still needs to undergo some updates itself. That's needs a version 2, and I know it's been on the to-do list for Jingyu for some time to look into it. We don't have a definitive timeline on the developments for that, so we're pushing forward on the other components. And just quickly, let me talk about how we're using that at Tuum. So those 3 main components are being used in Profile, and then also now in the Mission 89 application that we've just started developing. And so how does that work? So on Profile, you can immediately sign on and get it did. So we have the new quick DPoS creation that's done instantly, a matter of seconds rather than 30 minutes of what it took previously on proof of work. So that's great. It's a huge update. And with that, it's being created in the background, and then anything that you do, you can verify it through publication to the blockchain. So you have that component. And then the last piece is you have a vault where your data is stored immediately. So you have all that. Then you can build off of that in the application by adding more information, verifying more information, and we're kind of just creating a means to begin the process towards a data marketplace, because you have the users, you have the data being stored, you have it in one central location. So what we're missing now is something like several teams have been talking about, where we've heard people talk about data trusts and Orchard team and getting that from the consumer to the producer. And that hasn't been built out yet, but we're near it. We're getting close. And tying back in the economic forum, they've made comments recently about how, you know, that also is coming near and more of the centralized world as well. So we're quickly approaching it, and we need the technology that we're building to help enhance that.
Yeah, in fact, thank you for tying it back to the World Economic Forum, because in the council meeting you were talking about, you know, it's difficult right now to sort of throw Elastos out there, or you know, get people to sort of look at it as a use case or pilot, because some of the stuff hasn't been built out. I think you mentioned Elastos was mentioned in the last white paper. And then I think you mentioned you're working on a white paper now, and of course you'll look for opportunities to mention Elastos. But would this be like a scenario of a pilot that you would then push if this last
that's the ultimate goal of our participation at Tuum Technologies? Is our end goal is to participate in these pilots ourselves. You know, we want to build out the marketplaces ourselves, and we want to implement the Elastos technology, and not only sit in on these meetings and provide input, but say, hey, we'll build it for you. We'll show you, we'll at least, you know, give it a run. So that's certainly an end goal at the Economic Forum. But even outside of that, we have our other applications like Profile and Mission 89 are quickly going to be going into pilots. So I think that we're getting towards that stage where we feel more comfortable with the technology that's been built over the past 4 years. And now we can start to build them into client-side products and start to pilot it and use it in test cases and grow our user base.
And then, so as we talk about Profile, and maybe before I dig into Profile, I guess, when do you think, from a roadmap perspective, we might be in a place to raise our hand a little more actively in the forum and participate or lead a pilot?
Let's see here. So to answer that, I'm kind of thinking back over the past 4 years and how things have progressed, because from my perspective, when I came on early on, you know, with probably many of us are the same way, I thought we'd be ready a lot sooner. But for better or worse, we are where we are today, and I think that we're at a better place than I originally imagined. So just take, for example, our identity solution. Earlier in the year, I would have said, you know, we can go ahead and feel comfortable with using it pretty soon. But then we started to build out Profile, and understanding that the startup process was not user friendly, took too long, no one's going to sit around for that. And actually building the applications using it, you start to realize needs a little work. So we did the huge transition over to DPoS, and now I'm really comfortable with DID, where it's at today, and using that here pretty soon. Hive is right behind it. So again, all those 2 components with verifiable credentials, I think that later this year, end of this year, you'll start to see it actively being used on Profile and other applications. You've seen what's happened with the change of Essentials, how the user experience is continuing to grow much better quickly. So all of those components, I'd be confident to say, you know, raise your hand and let's start to plug those in at the end of the year. Carrier, like I said, still needs some work, but a lot that we can provide that's valuable doesn't necessarily rely on Carrier today. So it has huge potential, but it's not, I don't think it should hold us back.
Yeah. So I think to your point, what you're saying is, you know, you thought we maybe would have been in a position earlier, but as you started to use the technology for the applications or applications that, yeah, the applications that you're building, you realize maybe things, I don't know, gaps or opportunities to do better. So I guess then to the ultimate point is, you know, we don't want to go in and pushing us to be a pilot to ultimately be embarrassed by, yeah. So I guess it's a good thing that we're taking our time and wanting to make sure that we're going to go with something that's viable and not get laughed at, because as we all know, first impressions are the most important impression.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. And I think that it's difficult to put a lot of pressure on us because if you look at this whole space, there's a huge lack of UI UX. You know, there's the user experience isn't there, and you know, you can't compare it to a traditional applications user experience today. But we've been working on that. You know, we'll call it like a blunder phase, because if you look at some different diagrams, you'd say early on in tech, we're in the blunder phase where we're working through these things. We're working through the issues with mnemonics and how users will deal with that and understand it, and just the whole blockchain needing transaction fees. We build assist, things like that. So we're working through it, and I think that actually is putting us ahead of the game. So we can step into that next phase here really soon, where a lot of other projects are going to come in and now start understanding those issues where we've already worked through it. So I feel really confident about the whole identity side of the project for sure. And then the storage of data and how those are going to interact, it's going to be huge.
Would you say that the roadmap for the development that Tuum is doing is in sync with the roadmap for the work that is going on in the WEF, to the extent that, you know, will development be complete so we can, or you can participate in you know, in these examples or in these tests?
Yeah, based on the timeline I gave you with our deliverable for the DCPI in the beginning of 2022, I see no reason why Tuum would not be ready to participate in the next round of pilots, at least in those core aspects that we've talked about.
Fantastic. Okay.
So moving on to profile, if
Yeah.
we can, and I know we've touched on it already a little bit, but you know, you ran the alpha phase a few months ago. You know, gave some opportunity out to folks in the community as well as others to kind of participate in that. I think you moved. You've moved to beta now, or is that planned?
Well, as of today, I got word that we've worked through some of the final bugs. That the issue that has been is the did.js SDK. So once we shifted over to the new DID sidechain, we've run into a lot of issues. And the long and short of it is that things were being published through a resource that we built previously, getdids.com. We're giving us problems with new DIDs that are being created on the new sidechain. And so we've been working through bugs for many more weeks than what we would have liked. But we are officially switching into a beta phase where we'll start to be more active on social, and there's going to be no access code restrictions, and users can get back onto the platform and use it in a way where we'll be confident to shift into the next phase after this month.
Yeah. Can you share some? And that's really great to hear. And maybe we can, like, how long do you envision sort of beta to last? I guess it's hard to say. You don't know maybe some of the issues that'll come out of that. But
well, the good news is that as we've had several team members looking into the SDK issues, we've continuously had other engineers that are working on new features. So feature development hasn't stopped. We're continuing to try and build out a nice platform so that we are confident when we go into the full beta that you know, users are going to not be disappointed. So that's good. Just trying to think. I'd have to follow maybe back up after we get through.
I want to know when. I want to know when I'm breaking out the balloons and the confetti. When are we
Yeah,
when are we going live?
I think that it would be worthy of some announcements, because we're considering this our flagship product at Tuum, because it is utilizing all the core technologies of Elastos and or eventually going to. And I think that this is one of our first web-based platforms that are going to be easy for all users. It's going to be desirable because it's similar to like a LinkedIn or Experience that people are familiar with. I think it's going to set the foundation for the shift into participating in data marketplaces and owning data and seeing a true monetization of data. But also there's a lot of interoperability with it, where it's going to work with Essentials. We may even have our Mission 89 product link in with it, and it'll show you how you can do a lot of cool things. We're going to have NFTs. The list goes on. So
Yeah.
we'll
So
stop there for now.
so it's great. I guess, one of the things, hopes or goals or realities is at some point with blockchain, really the world or users are not even going to know they're on blockchain.
Absolutely.
Um, is that kind of how you envision profiles, sort of just acting and feeling like a regular old sort of
Well,
web?
yes and no. So we ultimately would like to have it to where users don't know they're using blockchain, but there's going to be more of a living, breathing feel to platforms whenever you're using it, because you have to go through publication and processing and getting things on the blockchain. So whenever you start up profile for the first time, you can log in with what you're familiar with, your social accounts, log in with your email, log in with phone, create an account with a basic traditional way. And the DID's created in the background, so you don't even know that's happening. So that's being published, you're being provided a vault, all of this is happening in the background. What we do once you're on there is, give an alert or have a startup guide. We're basically saying, now you are the owner of this identity. You're the owner of this storage. Here's your mnemonics, or just understand that you're in custody of it. And then as you are using the platform, whenever you're publishing things to the blockchain, you may be getting an NFT, you may be getting some type of emblem on your account, or there's value that's being done in the background, so that if you're interested in it and there's value there, then yes, you can dive into it and see what's happening behind the scenes. But if you're just a normal user and you just want to use the platform and you're okay with maybe letting Tuum or someone else hold your data for you, or like if you're familiar with the Facebook, you can operate on it the same way. But the potential is extreme with something like this.
So what exactly is profile going to be? So we say it's sort of a LinkedIn, right? And if I think about LinkedIn, you log in and you essentially have a feed like you would a Facebook page, right? You have the feed of what your contacts are posting, or first, second, third degree contacts, and sort of what the stories they're posting or articles or whatnot. And then separately, you sort of have your profile page, which is where you have your resume or places you've worked, or references, or all that kind of stuff. You have business page where they can list careers and job openings, and you can use that as a mechanism to apply for jobs. I mean, is this profile, or is profile different? How do you describe, or how would you describe?
To start, you're close. That's how we're going to frame out the beginnings, because we still have to work through implementing the technology and getting people familiar with it and testing it out. So the easiest thing to do is start by putting in your personal information. And so you don't have to show all of that. You can pick and choose what you want to show, but you can quickly and easily get all of your social accounts verified, receive an NFT or a verified credential that these are truly your accounts. You can display it in different ways. So one early feature that we're trying to do is to market to content creators. So there will be different ways to display your profile, whether you're in crypto or you're in gaming, or you simply want to use it for an educational online profile, online resume. There's going to be different versions of your displayed profile publicly, and then you can customize it. So early on, it's just an aggregated resource of verified information about yourself that no one can take down or take from you. So that's the basics. And there is value in that because just gaming, for example, someone can be trying to represent themselves as you or your gamer tag or whatever, and you'll see it now on social or on other platforms like Twitter with crypto. You see these impersonations, and you won't have that because you are who you say you are. It'll show you're verified. It'll show all your linked accounts online as being verified. So it has value because it is a central resource for that.
Yeah, I guess one, I think about Telegram, chat app that's most common, very commonly used in the crypto space. And there's a lot of spoofing. You always hear in the chats, an admin will never message you first, kind of thing, because there's spoofing of their accounts or bad actors trying to get access to user information. I guess would an ultimate use case be you would verify your ID from Twitter to this profile, so then you kind of know if you're being spoofed by a bad actor?
Correct. Yeah. So that's happening now. You can immediately, the quickest and easiest thing to do is to verify all your social accounts. So you can use this as your central source to say, this is who I am. But there's other things on top of that. One thing is that people are now becoming more interested in synonymous accounts. So one thing that we're thinking about doing is having your verified personal information, but then linking that to a synonymous account so that in the back end, you don't have to display your personal information, but you can also do things with that to show that you are who you are without giving away, your full privacy.
So you link it in profile, your Twitter account, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
but then if you're not, your, I said Twitter, Telegram, sorry, your
Yes.
Telegram account, then Telegram would need to then show that this is a verified account by a profile, no? Or
Well, yeah, because that's the expansion of the product. So we're one of the other things, cool features is login with profile. So we're gonna create a mechanism to where any participating platform can have a login with profile or access to their profile information. That's the ultimate goal because we want to eliminate what everybody's familiar with now for login with Facebook or login with Google that you use on every platform.
Yeah.
The beauty of DIDs, which is essentially what we're doing here, is interoperability. So just quickly, let me talk about the Mission 89 Sports app. Here's an example. So we have this mobile application where a player has all their stats and information on it. And we may not send all of that to profile, but by logging with their DID, then they will have an NFT emblem on their profile there that says, verified stats on sports app, and then you can click that on profile and then go out to that application, and that's a link using the DID between everything in the ecosystem.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. And I'm going to circle back to Mission.
Sorry, just a quick one. In terms of profile and even Mission 89, it's going to leverage DIDs, industry leading. How do you envisage monetizing it? Because at the end of the day, right, Tuum is a for-profit organization.
So let me just clarify here. So you're talking about how do we as Tuum envision monetizing the platform, or how would users monetize the use of the platform?
Let's say both.
For us, as you grow a user base, there's opportunities to follow the same Web2 strategy of advertising. We don't want to do that. That's how all the companies are operating now and making all this money, is by advertising their users. You can do that, but we see value in the providing of the NFTs, providing of the verifiable credentials, connecting that with other platforms. You can go down the path of kind of combating fake news. If you have a large following that wants to use profile as authors, they can take their ID and they can log in with profile on a platform or like Medium where they write, or they reference other users, and they can use that to verify the information, or they are who they say they are. So there's ways that you can add in payment mechanisms to where you're charging people for these services. You can charge them, limit them to one publication per day. If they wanted to go and do a bunch of different actions, then they'd have to charge them a subscription fee, or you can start charging the user to do these things, because with Assist, we've built it out to where the developers are the ones eating the cost. So none of these blockchain fees are going to the users. So you can do that. Once you start to incorporate Hive and storage, then you can have storage providers. You can do that as a monetization structure for ourselves, or you can have a whole new business use case for just simply having service providers charging for storage. Or a huge component of all this is the verification. So you're going to have not only users on these platforms, but also validators. So take, for example, the sporting topic that we're talking about. You're going to have organizations that have agents. Their agents will assign themselves to a page that's run by the organization. The organization will act as a validator. So they're sitting there verifying the certifications, their identities, and each time this is done, it charges a fee. So there's ways that you can have KYC users. There's a lot that you can do with it, because each of those different components has a value to it. So that's kind of a span of how a lot of different players can get involved to monetize. And then you can talk about the users. Once there are marketplaces, you have this slew of personalized data that's been verified and authentic that you can then link up to these other marketplaces using your DID, and it instantly brings your data to their platform.
Great. Just conscious of the time, maybe I'll ask one last profile question, then we can spend just another few minutes on Mission 89 if there are other key updates you want to highlight there.
Yeah.
And then we'll let Fox run off with a fun little game that we've prepared for you,
Okay.
as well as selecting a winner from our last video with Rong, and allocate out some ELA. So just real quick, one last question. Hopefully it won't take too long, but you mentioned with Profile the participating sort of groups. So, the more other applications or platforms that are participants of Profile, then you'll be able to, log in with Profile. I guess that's business development. Presumably, you're kind of very actively engaged in kind of advertising Profile and try to bring on these partnerships. Are you able to talk a little bit about who we're targeting, or who we already have sort of on and a part of a participant of Profile?
Well, let's see here. This will lead us into Mission 89, so I can go into more details there. But let's just talk about both. Mission 89 has come out, we're talking about the sports application, and we're conscious of using each of the solutions and the platforms that we're building at Tuum interoperability if we can. So let's just say for sports players, they may be interested in the app, but then agents and organizations may be interested in Profile, and then they could function together. So we are looking to run a pilot using Profile for an agent organization, a large group dealing with soccer, football in Europe, and this can span to other areas such as Asia and Africa and different sports. So that's how it would expand. We'd start with one small organization. We're doing research now to understand where the value lies with these organizations. And once we can provide those key features, then we can expand off into other globally, other areas and similar groups. So we're kind of right now focusing hard on what is within our reach, and that's sports. So going into Mission 89 in the application, we've seen a lot of interest in what we're doing in a short period of time. So for those that aren't aware, Orchard has worked with Mission 89 to help combat human trafficking in sports, and they've been doing this for well over a year. And this project was handed over to Tuum Technologies through a successful Cyber Public DAO proposal. And since then, we've been in a position to take that information and build it into an application. And we just kicked that off last week, and we're actively in development, branding, design, all of that's underway. So what that means is we put out a press release and other parties have become interested. So those interested, which I can't disclose because we only have a signed agreement with Mission 89, but there's organizations that manage agents, there's government agencies, there's sports agencies, sports teams. It spans many different regions, and there's very big players that are interested in what we're doing. So the key components here are the identity, so provide every player an ID, the authenticity, so the interactions between players, agents, organizations will all be authentic, and then the data. So take, for example, in our app, let me just say we're early in planning and developing, but a player has their application on their phone, they immediately create an ID. It's an Elastos DID. They can verify that they are who they say they are. They can be finishing a game on the pitch, put in their stats, verify their stats are authentic. The peers on their team who are verified can say that those stats are true. The officials can right away scan and say that this is accurate. Agents and organizations are interested in these stats. They can access the application. Then there could be communication amongst parties. And all of this also is indirectly, but directly solving the problem of human trafficking in sports, because all parties are authentic. This can be verified, and there's going to be no more of these interactions where you have agents or others impersonating themselves, and the story after that, bad things happen, and people are put in positions where they wouldn't have been otherwise if the information was true, real time, verified, and on the blockchain. So that's what we're doing.
Great. That's
That's
great.
phenomenal. And I think I assume other opportunities could be in like Latin America, South Asia, where you have people, let's say for example, they go from the Philippines to Hong Kong, or in China, or even in India, where they think they're going abroad to be cleaners, for example, and then ultimately they get forced into things like the sex trade industry. Do you see DIDs playing a part in the solution there as well, in the same way it's working for Mission 89?
Well, the beauty of this is that we're starting in sport, but it actually spans many, many different areas. So you can just take the sport out of it and understand what we're looking at. We're talking to governments specific to agriculture. We're talking to large agencies that are interested in migration. So you can use this in a lot of different ways. We just need to get the DIDs created and use the verification working seamlessly and the proper UX, and then you can white label the Elastos products, bringing the technology to all different use cases. And that's where we're trying to go with Tuum technology. So all those different aspects I think are really interesting, and you can start to understand as we talk about it the huge potential here. But there are going to be roadblocks, because you can see with COVID how people are kind of worried about COVID passports, or worried about government control. Then you're going to have some governments that are obviously not going to be happy with not being able to access that data, and they may want to require direct access to that information to provide to authorities, and we're not about that. So we're going to stay in areas that we can, provide the useful product, and then use that to expand out into other areas.
Great. Well, let's move on to our last segment here, and then I'll circle back to anything last, Donald, you want to share with the community.
Yeah.
But let's move on real quick. Fox, should we do the fish, or do you want to do Donnie's do's and don'ts first?
Let's do the game first. Let's
Okay.
So let's go a bit informal. So Donnie, we are going to play. It's a very quick fire game. It's called Donnie's Do's and Don'ts. And the aim of the game is, I will ask you in quick fire succession. I'm going to give you common crypto terms that are either in the industry or specific to the community, and you can only answer do or don't. And the aim is to get through as many as you can within 30 seconds.
Oh, geez.
So it's so Troy, I'm gonna leverage you to keep an eye on the time. But Are you ready, Donnie, for Donnie's do's
Yep.
and don'ts?
Am I gonna know all these?
Well, that's the beauty. You may know, you may not know, and so your answer might be somewhat funny. But let's
All
kick
right,
this
let's
off.
do it. Let's do
Let's
it.
kick this off. Okay, so let's start. Remember, you got to say, you just got to say it off the cuff. So ELA,
Do.
Web 2,
Don't.
Web 3,
Do.
Dogecoin,
Don't.
cold wallets,
Do.
exchange wallets,
Don't.
DAOs,
Do.
buy high, sell low,
Don't.
staking,
Do.
Definity,
Don't.
liquidity pools,
Do.
marketing,
Do.
KYC,
Do.
stop losses,
Do.
speedos,
Do.
rug pulls,
Don't.
FOMO,
Do.
wreck,
Don't.
Binance.
We're that's timer. We went a little
That
over
was it?
30.
No,
How'd I do?
You got 18 out of 20. And maybe we stopped at just the right time. The last two were Binance and Coinbase.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Not
Save,
bad,
we'll
Donnie.
save those for next time.
Impressive.
Save those for next time.
That's a little fun game of Donnie's do's and don'ts.
That was good.
Well done. I'm particularly happy and pleased with your response on speedos. I'm sure Sonny will agree.
Absolutely.
You know what we should do? We've got the 4-year anniversary coming up. We should do an Elastos calendar. Prominent members of the community wearing speedos for every month of the year.
Nice.
Donnie,
From a fundraiser.
December for Donnie.
No, I'll buy one. I don't need to be part of one.
No, you'll be on it. We'll attach the photo to your profile. There forever.
Perfect. Sell it, NFT.
Well, thank you for that. So Donnie's do's and don'ts. And then to our last element here. So for those of you that had watched our last video with the founder of Elastos, Rong Chen, or co-founder, Rong Chen, we played a little game with him, and there was an award for the users who were watching and commented. And so we just want to spend a moment to allow you, Donnie, to pick the winner of that game. So
Okay.
for cool, Fox, why don't you run through that?
Let's do it. Yeah. So just to recap, Rong won 40 ELA for the pot. That is up for a lucky member of the community. And the community members were eligible based on if they had subscribed to the channel on YouTube and provided a comment on the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly share my screen. And what we have going on here, callback to ELA Fish, as some of the OG members will remember. So this is called the ELA Fish prize pool. So we have 18 fish up for grabs. What we will be looking for you to do, Donnie, is choose one, and each individual has been assigned a fish. So depending on which fish you choose, that the member will be the lucky winner. And what we did was, just as a little bonus for the first person that commented on the video, they've actually got 2 fish in the running. So Donnie, what ELA fish takes your pick?
I got mine picked out. It's good to eat, but it's not friendly to handle. The lionfish.
The lionfish. Oh, the last one, the lionfish. Okay, so those that don't know, lionfish are 0.35 centimeters long. So, Elation Studios, Elation Nation, not only do we bring you prominent members of the community, but we educate you on fish. So with that in mind, let's see who the lucky winner is. User Neo off TM. So congratulations. What I'll do is I will reach out to you on YouTube, but you are the lucky winner of 40 ELA, courtesy of Mr. Rong Chen and Donnie.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Nice.
So with that, we'll close it out. Last, you wanted to add or closing remarks for the community or just in general?
Yeah, there's a lot we're working on. I think everybody should be excited. We don't often get to provide updates on what we're doing, but just different things we're working hard on is providing the new elastos.org updated website, which is coming out here very soon. We've been pushing out a lot of content from Elastos Academy. Use those resources and spread the word. It's a lot of hard work that goes into that. But beyond that, get ready for profile. Like I said, beta's coming out real soon. No more restrictions on access. You want to get on that. There might be some opportunities in the future for being a verified member there. Pay attention and help us out with some feedback on what we're doing on other solutions like Assist and getting developers involved. That's all good stuff, but I'd also just like to say thanks to you guys, because I'm seeing groups like Elation Studios step up and help the community is huge. That's what we've been waiting on for a long time, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So all that hard work helps teams like Tuum and others and Trinity to get motivated and do what we're doing. And we'll be working on our business development, relationship building, and networking and user experience and all that on our side. So I think working together, we're really going to make a big move, because Web3, it's coming, and Elastos needs to be at the front of it. So that's what we're here for, and that's what we're doing.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Donnie. For those that, and thank you for those that are here watching with us, the Elation Nation. Thank you kindly. Truly, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you and your community votes through the election and just your continued viewership. So thank you. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and we will leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you, Donnie.
Yeah, thank you.